Now let's talk about, well, the big argument across the Tory party, across the large parts of the country. For a while now, ministers, they found themselves against Tory colleagues on the backbenches and so-called NIMBYs over planning reforms and the need to build more housing. A way to resolve that gridlock is now being proposed, it is said, which would give residents the power to decide on housing development on their own streets. The Conservative MP and former Minister John Penrose joins us now to tell us more. Good evening to you, John.
Hi, John.
Can you tell us, first of all, about your proposed solution?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's as you say, it's in line with some of the best bits of the existing proposals from government, in that it says what we need to have is something where local people make the decisions rather than having them imposed from on high. And in this case, it's a really local decision. So what would happen is if a particular street says, look, do you know what, we don't think that our council is moving fast enough, or is trying to put the wrong kinds of development in this particular place or that, they can take the law into their own hands for their street. They can come up with their own plan, and they can vote on the plan, and providing 60% or more of them say, yes, we think that's right, then they can basically adopt that as their plan for their street and then get on with building whatever they think is right for their street, and provide so that everyone can just get on with it, and that they know, and everybody knows, that there's local buy-in, local consent, local agreement to what's being done. So with any luck, it will avoid all the sort of the ill feeling and the division and the anger. But it will mean that we unlock this process of needing to build more homes, whether it's to rent or to buy, because many families know that either their children or their grandchildren or their friends or their neighbours can't afford to live in the places where they've been brought up, and that's just not right.
So look, so just explain this a bit more, because giving people a right to approve or veto a housing development in their own neighbourhood, in their own backyard, as it were, that would clearly go some way to showing people, quite a lot of way, to showing people that they've got a say in what goes on in their area. How far would it go, though, to meeting the urgent need for more housing in this country?
Well, I think, the answer to that is it obviously depends how many streets want to do it.
Well, quite.
But I guess the point is that it gives a way of short-circuiting. If people feel that their local council isn't moving fast enough or is doing it wrong, it means that more people can then say, well, look, we're going to do this for ourselves. We're going to create a plan. It won't just be for one development at the end of the street. It's something which will envisage the whole street so that everybody can benefit from it once everyone's agreed to it. And that means that so a lot of it will depend on whether or not councils get their act together and are able to sort of get local buy-in to do things, and have local plans that have got local acceptance and local agreement. And if they're finding that hard, this will be a safety valve, an escape valve, if you like, to try and release that pressure.
So look, the argument I'm going to put to you now for your comment, which is if NIMBYism, NIMBY, not in my backyard, if people vetoing change in their area because they want to preserve their area just the way it is, if that is an impediment, if that is a block to necessary development now, then giving everyone a vote on what goes on next door or just a few doors down the street, that is arguably NIMBYism on speed, isn't it? And what sort of answer is that?
Well, I think actually it's the other way around, funnily enough, because I take your point that people would be worried about that, but actually the difference with this is that if this applies to my entire street, and it means that my neighbour can take their two-bedroom house and build an apartment on top of it, so it's a three stories high place, and it's going to look good because it's got to comply with a local style guide that makes sure it's going to look beautiful. The point about it is that isn't something my neighbour's going to do to me, because I can do it too. And that means that both of us can benefit from this. Both of us can perhaps get a little bit richer by developing our plot, and we're both in the same boat, as it were. So it isn't something which my neighbour benefits from at my expense. We're both got the opportunity to do well out of this, and also, incidentally, to do the right thing, as I said, by our neighbours and by our other family members who can't afford to live nearby, even though they want to.
Yeah, well, I guess that argument doesn't go all the way, or even very far, towards making a complete case, though, John. Put it to you for the sake of argument. I mean, you can have a tit-for-tat development contest with your neighbour and keep on building extensions till the cows come on. Well, you could try to do that. But if it came to building an estate of homes at the end of the street, and arguably, I think you acknowledge this, some of those developments are not the most attractive developments. You can imagine street after street saying no to that, and there's a housing need unfulfilled. That would be another part of the argument.
Well, so the whole point about this is it's about a particular, it's about the current people in the street being able to say what they want to do to their properties. Now, if there's something else off the end of the street, which is a brand new plot, that's a slightly different kettle of fish. I take your point. But what we're really talking about here is saying, what can I do? What can you do as my neighbour? What can we do as a street in order to develop our street in ways which everybody thinks will make it look better, and which will raise the neighbourhood, and which we will all enjoy. Now, you are right. I'm not trying to pretend that this is going to be the answer to big new housing developments plonked down elsewhere in the same town or elsewhere in the same council area. That's why the local council plans have to happen. But what I am saying is that if you don't like the plans for your street, you don't have to sit there and take it anymore.
All right. Now, what are the chances, John, of the government, giving any house room to this piece of legislation? They certainly have been in trouble on their own plans, haven't they?
Well, interestingly, on their own plans, there's an awful lot of good stuff in there, but a couple of things that are causing concern to do with the housing numbers and those sorts of things. So we'll have to see what they announce and which bits they keep and which bits they want to modify. That'll be up to them, obviously, not you or me. But what this could do is to provide them with an additional way of solving some of those problems on a really local basis. So, because, as I said, be a useful pressure release valve, if you like. I'm hoping that they'll therefore see it as that, because it matches an awful lot of the rest of the best bits, the bits that people do like about the proposed plans, in that it's asserting local control over planning, so people get a say in their neighbourhood, and it also helps people do this thing about building back more beautifully, because you get local style guys to say, look, this is what the local style is around here. Everything's either timber frame or it's Georgian Regency terraces or whatever it might be, and we want it to look consistent, and therefore you can stop it being some monstrous skyscraper that nobody wants. So you can make sure that if you adopt one of these plans in the way that it's been described, your street's going to look much better if you want it to.
All right, we'll be watching how this bill gets on. John Penrose, Conservative MP, thank you for joining us.